Investing can be very scary, especially with the media and the algorithms on social media pushing uh, all the, just pushing all the negatives essentially towards it. But honestly, investing is such a beautiful thing, and here's why. And this is, again, this video is called "Investing Isn't Scary, but Inflation Sure Is." And so I just wanted to run through this too, because this can really, whether you're just starting out investing or whether you're just making good money, wondering how to invest, or you're somewhere in the middle, or even if you have, if you have $500,000, $1 million, $2 million in your portfolio, this has some substance to it, no matter what, obviously, because you know what does happen every single year essentially is inflation, and it's invisible, and it's not as volatile as investing can be. It's a more, it's a steadier thing, but essentially it does eat away at your cash. So what you're losing is your purchasing power, is what it's called. And so over time, that purchasing power does decrease. Now, we have a targeted inflation rate in the country of around 2 to 3%, somewhere in that ballpark, roughly, by leadership. And that is generally the consensus is that is a good thing to have some inflation, for many reasons that I'll dive into on another video. But you can pretty much expect inflation to run 2 to 3% a year forever, for your life. And now it's, it may seem like a bad word. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's there for a reason. And again, if you it does cause your assets to rise over time too, theoretically. So anyway, it's not going away. Now, it's important though to know that it's there. And again, it's invisible. And it does impact everything about you, honestly, your wages, your cash on hand, your assets, etc. So just here's some quick data again. No matter where you're at in the investing journey here, this is very important to remember. So if you're not investing, you're losing the battle, essentially, is the premise here. Now, $100,000 in 1989, so I just time traveled 30 years back, essentially. $100,000 back in 1989 is the equivalent in purchasing power today of about $250,000, so 250K roughly. This is an increase of over 150 grand over those 30 years. And it's just, it's if you look at that, you're like, wow, I wish I had 100 grand back then, because that's what it's worth today, or vice versa. Yes and yes. Now, if you had $100,000 just sitting there and you didn't invest over 30 years, you lost a lot to inflation over the years too. I don't have that number listed, but you lost a lot. You can do the reverse math on it. And so the dollar had an average inflation rate of a little over 2.5% over the last 3 years. And again, it does fluctuate. There are some periods where there's little to no inflation. We haven't really seen deflation or stagflation during that time period, but we have seen a spike in inflation after COVID, 2021, 22, 23-ish. We saw an influx of it. So we crammed a lot of inflation into the last few years, really. But again, you peel that back, you zoom your lens out, you still have right in between the target of essentially what the Fed targets here for inflation. So it's going to be there no matter what, is my point here on it. That means prices have risen 156% roughly during that time frame. So again, it may seem scary. Yes, it is if you lost your purchasing power, meaning you weren't investing, you just were relying on maybe a salary. So real wages and nominal wages have somewhat kept up with inflation over the years. I mean, really, in theory, it'll match it, right? Typically, your employer is going to give you a raise in accordance with inflation data that's released. So it's very difficult to get ahead unless you're really, really, really pumping up, your job hunting, you're switching every 2 or 3 years, you're negotiating hard, you're upping your roles, etc. Now, we know inflation is a sure thing, just about as sure as taxes are, essentially, that you're going to pay every year. So how you get ahead of it is you have to invest. And again, this is why investing, to me, is not scary. What is scary is the inflation over the years eating away at your cash and your purchasing power over time. Any window, if you're a 60-year-old and you're retiring right now, and the average lifespan is, we're pushing 80 years old now, you have 20 years of inflation on your assets still. And then if you have any estate planning concerns, you're going to pass your assets on to your children. If you let inflation eat away at it, meaning you got scared out of the market, run out of the market, you're not investing at all, blah, 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 this administration, that administration, then you're going to, inflation is going to win. That's as simple as that. So yeah, you may think it's safe to sit fully in cash. But even in cash, you're not safe. Inflation gets you everywhere. So now the fun part, if you invest, and I just took the S&P 500 for example here, that's one of many asset classes, obviously. But if you had invested that $100,000 30 years ago, back in 1989, and you reinvest all the dividends, of course, you would have picked up about a $4 million portfolio size today, assuming the roughly 11% annual return that the S&P 500 has picked up since then. May seem nuts, may seem unlikely. Again, you'll hear it all the time. History doesn't; it's not an indicator of the future. Who knows if it'll do it again, etc. But to me, that's a lot less risky. Yes, it has ups and downs that are more published, if you will. But it's a lot less risky than doing nothing and letting inflation take away 2.5% a year. That's the real enemy. Hope this helps you guys stay invested for the long haul. Get invested if you haven't started, and just something to think about, obviously, as over your time horizon, whatever that may be. So again, if you're younger, you have a really long time horizon. You have to get going. If you're middle age, you still have a pretty good time horizon. You have to consider this. If you're retiring, you still have a long time horizon compared to inflation, honestly. So no matter what, you should stay allocated. Focus on what you can focus on. So cash flow from your employer, cash flow from your portfolio in the form of dividends, interest, etc., capital gains, owning real estate. There's a lot you can do to combat this, but it is invisible. It is there, though. This is me reminding you of that. Hope it helps.